Welcome to the Riding in the Weeds podcast, where we tackle life's inevitable challenges, from navigating mountain bike trails to overcoming business hurdles and forging deeper connections with pets and people. It's easy to find yourself tangled in the weeds, but we're here to help with insights and strategies that'll get you out of the weeds. Our goal is to boost your performance in both sports and everyday life by sharing essential skills that we've learnt along the way. Through tales of our entrepreneurship journey, thrilling biking adventures, and fostering meaningful relationships, your hosts, Natasha, Lockey, and Ginny, Branden, will guide you on a journey that's not only enjoyable, but also inspiring. Join us to gain confidence that you need to navigate the trails of life. Hello and welcome to Riding in the Weeds. We are talking today about knowing when it's time to change. This podcast is all about normalizing the fact that we get stuck in the weeds in life, and normalizing the fact that it's not about getting stuck in the weeds, and it's not about judging and beating yourself up about that. It's about how quickly can you change? Can you address it? And can you move out of it? So we talk about tips and strategies to help you move through that. Today we're talking about knowing when it's time to change, so that we don't stay doing the same thing that we've been doing over and over again and not really getting anywhere. I'm Natasha Lockey. I am a mountain bike performance and life performance coach, and I really enjoy helping people move through challenges and get to the other side so that you can be living the life that you dream of every single day and really feeling that magic. And I'm here with my amazing co-host, Ginny, Branden, and I will let her introduce herself and we'll get kicked off.
Yeah, I'm Ginny, Branden. I'm an animal communicator and energy healer for animals and their people too. If you are having challenges in your relationship with your pets and you think you need to do something different, that's where I come in and can help support both of you to get back to a little more harmony in your lives together.
Awesome. So, change, knowing when it's time to change. We were just having a conversation before we jumped on here about just how we get stuck into things and things become familiar really, really quickly. My experience that we were actually just chatting about was one day I searched on YouTube that like 10-minute yoga sessions, and Yoga with Cassandra came up. And so I did one of her yoga sessions and I really, really liked it. And then I did another person's and I really enjoyed that. Then the YouTube gods start just feeding you Yoga with Cassandra. So I just kept on doing her 10-15 minute yoga workouts and have now become quite familiar and quite addicted to this one person. And I found myself going, okay, well, maybe I should do something different. Maybe I should change which 10-minute yoga. There are 5 billion different 10-minute yoga, 15-minute yoga videos that I could do. And of course, if I stick with the same instructor, I'm just doing the same stuff. So the whole concept around what we want to talk about today is like, why change? How do we know when we need to change? And really, do you need to? So, Ginny, give us your wisdom on this and we'll kick it around.
Yeah, so my response to your exploration of choosing to do a different yoga in the morning, which you said you didn't actually like, is that I personally tend to get stuck. When I'm working with the horses and we're working on training a concept, I will be working along and things will be going super well, and then all of a sudden things are just not going as well anymore. And I'll have another lesson with my trainer and she's like, well, yeah, that's because the horse is ready for something completely different and you're still over here trying to do the same thing and you haven't changed with the horse to match their needs in the moment. I'm like, oh yeah, here we go again. So I tend to run in this pattern. I get a little bit of tunnel vision sometimes. And when it's familiar, it's comfortable. So I know how to do the thing. I can do that thing very well. We're working on this certain concept and I'm doing it and I'm doing it well. And it's uncomfortable to think of changing something. But if I'm not responding to what's happening around me, I miss that opportunity. And it can be detrimental to our training together with me and the horse if I don't adapt and don't change based on their needs in the moment. So in that situation, it's important to question what you are doing and ask, is this the most useful task in this moment? So that you can make sure what you're doing is effective. But that doesn't mean you need to change all the time, every time. But you have to ask the question.
Yeah, I like that. And what you've reminded me of is when you're learning to mountain bike, it's like you come and you do a lesson. And I think this is also talking to the importance of having a coach in your corner. But you'll do a lesson and you learn how to do that skill at the level that you're at. And the thing is that cornering when you're a beginner is different. You need a different strategy. So you're going a certain speed, your braking is a certain way. The ability to look ahead is where it is at that moment in time because you're at a place in your biking. And again, just normalizing it, you're at a beginner level, right? And most people at that beginner level are having this same experience. And then you get to a point where you start getting comfortable going faster. And at that point, everything needs to change. You're feeling great, your corners are smooth, everything's feeling awesome. And then one day you go for a bike ride and it's all wrong and nothing feels good. And you're like, what do you mean? I was doing so well. Why have I gone backwards? And in fact, you haven't gone backwards. You've gone forwards. And now what you were doing before is no longer working because you're going faster. And when you're going faster, your braking needs to be adjusted slightly. The way that you're coming into the corners needs to be adjusted. Your body position in the corners needs to be adjusted because everything's happening at that slightly different level. So it's like you're leveling up. It's like you're in that video game. And when you go to the next level in a video game, you have to up level your skills because the skills that worked for you at that lower level are not going to work with the new challenges that you are facing. And that's when you need to be asking those questions. And it's the same in your relationships with other people. It's the same with your relationships with your animals. It's the same in your career. If you stay in the same place and you stay the same, then yeah, you don't need to change. But there is a reason why there are beginner, intermediate, and advanced levels in absolutely everything that we do. And as you change, you will be dissatisfied and things won't feel right where you are and you start having that friction. Mountain biking, cool. Well, now I go to an intermediate mountain biking lesson and I learn the new skills. Cool. I ask my trainer, she gives me more advanced lessons or things to do with my horse. But how does that work in our day-to-day lives when suddenly you feel like you've outgrown your career or the job that you're doing or the relationship that you're in? Like, how do we adjust and change in those situations?
Well, I think I want to touch on something that you commented on briefly is that it feels like we're going backwards. And that can be very true in the horse training work that I do, that you'll be progressing along and things will be going very well. And then all of a sudden, it feels like everything falls apart. It feels like they aren't capable of doing the same things anymore. It feels like they're more unbalanced. It feels like they're wobbly. It can be extremely disconcerting. And this is usually when I'm freaking out, running to my trainer, like, what's wrong? What's wrong? Are they injured? Is something happening? And she always explains to me, no, this is the next layer of their physical body coordination coming together. And just like everything else, you have to peel back the layers of the habits that you've had for years and years and years until you can get to a point where you can build on that. And it comes and goes in waves. And so sometimes we do feel like we're going backwards in terms of our skills. You're like, gosh, I can't even do the same thing I was doing yesterday. I think that's the red flag that should tell us, hey, you need to change what you're doing because what you were doing is no longer appropriate anymore. When it comes to careers or skills, when you're talking about business or anything else, like that red flag when something is not working and you're trying to do the same thing, that's when you need to go find new skills. And the challenging part with that is sometimes that means you need to go ask more questions, go find a new coach, go find a new business mentor, go find someone else who's done what you're trying to do, and start asking the questions to figure out what your next plan needs to be, what your next step needs to be in that situation. I think we can learn to self-coach ourselves. That's certainly what my trainer is trying to teach me. It's taking a while, but just what she's trying to teach me is these are the choices of the options that you can work with in this situation. And so when something isn't working, you have to try one of these choices until the right one fits. And I think that kind of experimentation, number one, I think that's a learned skill. I don't think we give enough credit for the fact that that in and of itself is a skill that we can cultivate, that adaptation and that continual exploration and experimentation in a situation. And then we have to be willing to do that. It's not comfortable. That's the whole devil that you know versus the devil that you don't. But I honestly think if I think through every time in my life when I finally made the change and went to the quote unquote the devil that I don't know, it was always easier and it was always better. And I always wished I had taken that step sooner instead of staying in the quote devil that I know that's already uncomfortable. Why would I not choose the change? Because it might get easier and it might be more comfortable. So willingly doing that is part of the solution.
Yeah, I think there's so much in there that is so true. The self-coaching thing is something that is very much my coaching style, is trying to teach people how to use the things and do it themselves. How can I teach you and show you how to do this without me? Because I'm not going to be on every bike ride with you. And the idea behind everything I've ever done has been to try and make myself obsolete, right? When I was doing my snowshoes in the community, my idea was to get women together so they could meet each other, show them some trails so they could go out and do it without me. It wasn't the most effective business strategy, but that's like a chiropractor who only half cracks you, so you have to keep coming back. What you really want to trust is that you give someone the tools and then they're able to level up, and they may move beyond you or they may be able to grow with you. But either way, our job isn't to hold people in a stuck place so that they always need us or always rely on us. The idea is that we want to be able to give ourselves, or if we're coaching people, we want to be able to give them the ability to move on. And it's really about noticing when you're actually holding yourself stuck, because you are staying with a yoga instructor that only teaches beginner yoga, and you've now moved beyond the beginner yoga level and you need to move up. Honestly, with Cassandra, I probably just need to pay for her app and and get her other lessons. But as you say, noticing that, right? Because we are able to coach ourselves. And it's really interesting because, to get really vulnerable, it's really fascinating when we get to that point where I'm like, right now I'm looking at my diet and I'm like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to make that change. I don't want to have to do that. And I don't know if I need to do that, but everything doesn't want to do it. And that might be because it's not good for me and my body is saying, you're good, just keep doing what you're doing. Or it might be that I'm just really resistant to taking on that challenge, and I'm not in a space where I feel like I want to do that. And sometimes we have to do it anyway. I don't want to do that. Well, that's what you got to do. Because if you don't, nothing's going to change. We were talking about your mum, right? Yeah, you might not want to do that. But taking that 20-minute walk after dinner could be the thing that changes everything for you.
Yeah. And we're not going to know until we try. And I think that's one of the pieces of the puzzle, is just cultivating that willingness to explore all sorts of different things when it comes to our lives and the goals that we have, the things we like to do. Like, okay, if you like yoga with Cassandra, there's no reason not to explore other yoga teachers. because then you get to figure out, number one, what you like, and number two, what works for you. And when you find something that works, sure, you can stick with it. But there should always be that question of, is this the most effective thing for me? Because actively asking that question frequently is going to keep you out of the deep weeds. I won't say it'll keep you out of the weeds altogether, but it'll keep you from sliding in head first and getting stuck there for a long time, because you are asking the question, is this the most effective thing I should be doing today with my time, with my pet training, with my horse training, with my business, with my food, with my diet, with my exercise, whatever it is this the best use of my time in this moment? And is this going to get me closer to the results that I want? Sometimes that step backwards, it feels terrible when it happens. When it happens in the horse training, it feels awful because it feels like everything's falling apart and it feels like your horse is broken. Like, it's not a fun feeling, but you have to be able to move through that. And it's important that you keep going instead of quitting. Because when you hit that point where what you're doing is no longer working, if that's when you quit, then you aren't ever really going to achieve your goal. That's the red flag that should tell you, I need to do something different, not quit. I need to change teachers. I need to change strategies. I need to change whatever. Maybe it means for a while, like in your case right now, you're not biking a whole lot. Maybe the yoga is exactly what you need to be doing right now. And when you go get back on your bike, it's going to have changed how you bike. So maybe it does mean pivoting to a different task or a different concept, but not stopping.
Well, I think there's interesting layers in what you just said. One thing is the rigidity. And the second thing, I'm telling you this so I don't forget, is the quitting concept. So I'm going to talk to quitting first. Like, quitting's okay. And actually what you just said is sometimes you do need to quit things. You didn't say that, but you do need to know when to quit. And
right.
It's not so much that you're quitting in the sense of negativity. It's actually in the good thing. It's like quitting smoking or quitting doing something that's not working for you anymore, quitting a relationship that's not working. It's knowing when to quit is a very big part of this whole being able to change and switch up. That's coupled with the rigidity. And the rigidity is what I experienced this morning, which was I've got 50 minutes and I've got my 10 minutes for my workout, and then I have my 10 minutes for my yoga, and then I have my 10 minutes for my Tai Chi, and then I have my 10 minutes for my meditation. And somehow that takes an hour, even though I've only got 40 minutes in there. And in my workout, I keep on seeing this Tai Chi stuff that's like, if you do this exercise 100 times a day for 7 days, you will reduce your belly fat. I'm like, challenge accepted. But it's 2 minutes, right? So then I'm like adding these different exercises into my rigid structure that I've always used in the past. That's been the way that I've exercised. But I'm seeing that actually that exercise, even if it doesn't work to reduce my belly fat, I can see how that's a really cool dynamic squat that's also working my shoulder muscles. And I can see that as really helping. So where can I move that into this workout program that I already do? And that's expanding my space. I'm like, okay, well, how do I do a 15, 20-minute workout when I only have this short amount of time? And then again, I was pissed this morning when I did this yoga that it was fine. And this is where you got to bring the fun in, right? Because it was fine, but it wasn't what I was expecting. It wasn't my forward bend and my butterfly pose and my downward dog. It was none of those things. And instead I was doing swan arms and punches and like, okay, it's 10 minutes. But part of me was like, but now I'm missing out on that other stuff that I wanted to do. Yeah, but you're doing something different. And it's such an interesting dichotomy, right? Because we've got this structure. And if you change something and then it's not what you expected it to be, or if it doesn't give you the result in the moment that you're looking for, we start to feel ripped off. And again, like I have been really questioning myself was it the right move for me to sell my mountain biking business? My job used to be to go mountain biking every day, and I've switched it for my husband's outside right now preparing for our job of the day, which is crawling underneath the crawl space of our house and reattaching the vapor barrier and putting the pink bats back up in a crawl space that's barely big enough to actually slither into the hole. Like, yesterday I'm pulling down barbed wire fences. Like, is this really what I wanted to trade my mountain biking for? Did I really not like it that much? Like, what is wrong with me? And that's when we have to remember that it's not about necessarily what we're doing. It is sometimes about our growth. And yeah, it was really cool for 15 years to run a mountain biking business, but it didn't fit. It was like the clothes were not fitting anymore, and I needed to go and buy some more clothes. But I just kept on trying to fit myself back into those clothes.
Yeah.
And everybody I know could tell me that, like, the clothes weren't fitting anymore. Yeah, you had the best job in the world, but your business was going to die because you didn't have the passion for it anymore.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to the whole idea of Laundry in Paradise, right? That was like our 4th or 5th episode. Just because from the outside, I can see you running this business and you get to mountain bike every day doesn't mean from the inside that it's the right place for you at that point anymore. Like you said, you've outgrown it. And I think one of the most challenging points in time is the point at which we recognize we have outgrown something to the point at which we find what's next. We find for ourselves that next place, that next level, that next piece of the puzzle. Because oftentimes that window feels horrible and it feels really dark. It's never as simple as going to the store and buying the next size up shirt or pants or whatever. And that's what it is with the horses. Storm went through this in the summer. Along about July, August, he looked horrible. His muscling completely changed. He was actually lame occasionally while walking, and I was panicking. I was trying to figure out what was wrong. We were about to run some vet tests. I was scared. And he's up there in age to the point now where I don't know how much longer I will have with him because he's getting much older. And now he has dramatically changed. He's building muscle again. He's filling back out. His balance is massively improved. And we are seeing really strong results again in the work. The work has shortened. We're now only able to do about 20-minute rides because that's where his body can handle and support without going over into too much work. And so we're back into a groove again now, and who knows how long this groove will last before we're ready for the next evolution of change. But that same pattern happens in life, in careers, with our sports, with our passions, with our crafting, with art, whatever it is. There's that window of time where you suddenly recognize you should not be doing what you were doing, and you're just not sure how it's going to evolve into the next level. And that's scary. It sucks. I've been through it numerous times in my life, in all different aspects of my life. It's still just as scary when I work on it with the horses. Thank God my trainer is super confident because she's like, no, this is exactly what's supposed to be happening. And I'm like, okay. But that's how life works. And so it's important to recognize that we do change. And so when that little nagging thought starts to appear, like, I don't think this is the right place for me anymore, I think I need to make a change. Sometimes we have to wait it out. Sometimes we have to wait until the next thing materializes. But it's important to recognize that the change is coming and that we need to start taking the steps to prepare ourselves in the best way we know how with whatever we've got. And I think in your case, you recognized probably longer than you want to admit that you knew that you should not be running the bike business anymore. You knew that your next place was waiting for you somewhere, but you didn't know where it was. And it takes time for those things to evolve. But when we allow them to evolve and don't make them wrong, that sure does make it a lot easier.
Yeah, and just sitting in the discomfort, it is challenging. It's funny, as you were talking, I was thinking, much to my husband's chagrin, I really enjoy watching The Property Brothers. Happens to be just on our free TV. What's interesting is they have the two different shows, and one is where you go and you buy a house and they renovate it completely for you. So you buy a fixer-upper and they renovate it. But the other one is that they help you renovate the house you're already in so you can sell it, and then you go and buy a house. And it's fascinating to see, and I always find it really interesting, my reaction to watching these people who have their house that they've been living in for however many years, and for $15,000 these guys come in and just make it amazing and awesome and just so cool. And then they go and buy a house which is bigger, and it might be in a slightly better neighborhood, and it gives them the things that they're going to need, but it's got work that it needs to be done on, and no one's renovating it for them once they move in. So and then they go back to the house that's been renovated, and I'm always really impressed that the people aren't like, you know what, forget it, we'll just stay here.
Maybe I do like this.
And because they're so impressed with what's been done and their house looks so good, and now they're going and they're going to buy a new house that's got all these things that need to be done that they're just going to move in and live with, because clearly that's human nature. But they've been living with this shit for so long in the other house that they're just going to move into this new one. And it's always really impressive that they don't ever show on screen anyway, these people going, you know what, maybe we should just stay here now, it looks great. They're always like, no, we know that we've outgrown this place. We know that it's time for us to move on. And as you say, it's going to be uncomfortable when they move into this new house and they're like, oh, this isn't right. And I preferred how it was in our old house, and I liked this better. This needs to change. We need to do this. But you won't have that experience if you don't move. And remembering why you left whatever it was you left behind allows you to sit in that discomfort. I've been in this discomfort for going on 4 years now, and it's a long road, and it's really interesting, and I feel really, really lost a lot of the time. Like, who am I? What am I doing? What am I even good at? What can I do? What am I able to create next? And that's as uncomfortable as going, I got 10 minutes to do yoga and I didn't pick the right yoga video. So I think taking things a little bit lightly and just understanding that that might have been the yoga video that changed everything for me. In fact, it wasn't, but I'm not going to find whatever it is that's next. And trying that weird, funky, your belly's going to be blasted in 7 days exercise, like, quite honestly, I'm looking at this stuff more because it's like mobility and strengthening and moving. And the people that do Tai Chi, I feel like that's my next level of exercise, is I'm going to look into the whole Tai Chi thing. Anything that has Chi with it, moving your energy is so important. And that's so much about what we're talking about, is when your Chi, the energetic life force, gets stuck. That's when we physically gain weight. That's when we feel less mobile. That's when we are unable to shift and move because we become really rigid. And what you find is that then moves into the body. Suddenly your neck is really stiff. Your hips are becoming immobile. Your knees and your joints and everything stops working as well. It's not old age. That's stuck energy. That's the rigidity. That's the lack of desire to shift and change and move. And so when we can figure out ways to move that chi and move that energy around, that's the key and the crux of what we're really talking about here.
Well, and I love that reference anyway, because I find that if I am struggling with something in my business or trying to figure out what I should do next when it comes to strategy or something like that, if I go and get up and go do something physical, even as simple as folding laundry can sometimes help, but getting on my bike or going out in the barn and doing work or going out in the garden, like move the energy physically. And I think that physical component is so important to balance our really high demands in our society and our culture of the mental side of things. We, as a culture and society, spend so much time mentally engaged that we forget about the body. We forget about that connection. And if you're feeling stuck in one area, then go do something that seems like 180 degrees from whatever you're working on. Even if you're working on something physical, go do something that's the opposite. If you're trying to build strength, go try yoga. If you're trying to do one thing, go find the thing that's like on the other end of the spectrum from that and play with it and see what happens. Because sometimes we can have those breakthroughs when we're not focused on the thing we were worried about. And that's when the door opens and that's when the pieces can fall into place. So sometimes the change that needs to happen is going the other way and picking something else that seems completely unrelated. And on your note about the yoga that you did this morning that you don't like, sometimes that's the lesson. Sometimes the information that we get from an experience is that is the thing that I don't care to do. This does not resonate with me. The only way we're going to find that out, though, is if we try. And sometimes that's how you find out what you are doing is actually resonating with you, because this doesn't. So being willing to explore those things every now and then and go, yep, tried that, check that off, and we're not going to do that again. That's okay. Thank you. Sometimes that's the best answer.
Well, and sometimes actually digging in deeper to that thing is also, because it wasn't bad. It just was, it was
Just
different.
wasn't what you normally do.
And I mean, I spent a lot of my 10 minutes of yoga going, oh, how long is this 10 minutes going to take? Because this is painful and I don't want to do this. I'm not saying that I necessarily enjoy every 10 minutes of yoga. I find it really flippin' difficult. I actually looked up iron deficiency the other day on a spiritual level, and it said that spiritually, if we are not able to keep iron in our body, it's because we are not grounded, because iron is heavy, right? So if we're really ungrounded, we're going to struggle to keep iron. And I was like, that's really interesting, because females more and more are really struggling. We get iron infusions and then it just drains back out of us. And the doctors can't figure out why it's happening. And I was like, well, most women really, really struggle with that being grounded part. And that is such a true problem that we have in our society, is that we are so up in our heads, and to sit down and meditate for 5 minutes is really difficult. Well, that link actually makes a lot of sense. And if I'm struggling to be in a yoga for 10 minutes, that's speaking volumes to, okay, maybe there is a really interesting connection going on. That stay on that mat, try something different.
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe, just maybe, that's the missing link, because everything else I've been trying hasn't worked. And yeah, being the overachiever, being the Energizer Bunny, being all of that stuff just ran me to where I am right now. And so it's a process to unlearn who you were and what you were and what you've been doing. How long do you go before you change? How do you know? And that's really the crux of this conversation, is taking that time to actually be present with yourself, be grounded with yourself, and know that there is a point in time. I mean, the seasons change every couple of months. Nature changes.
Yeah.
And The caterpillar goes in, and there's that really cool story where it's like the caterpillar's like, nope, nope, nope. Nobody comes out alive. No caterpillar comes out alive of the cocoon. They go in there, and then this flying thing comes out, and so I go in there, I'm going to die. I do not want to do that. The caterpillar goes in and transforms into a magical creature. But when the caterpillar's looking at going into that cocoon, it's probably really scary. And I think that's what we deal with on a cycle, right? What is it? 7-year cycle? Everything changes.
Yeah. And I think we have to be aware of that and just know that it's coming and make sure that we're not holding on so tightly to things the way they are that we don't allow room for the change. It's a lot easier to go through change when you're not resisting it. I know that for sure. So much easier. And it's so hard to achieve that. So not even going to pretend like I have that one figured out at all, because I don't.
No.
But
I don't think anyone really can say that they do. You develop better and better processes to manage the change, and every time you do it, it happens a little faster. I remember telling someone, like, I'm always 3 years late with making the change that needs to be made. And they're like, yeah, but you did this one in like 2 years, so you're getting better. And I was like, oh, I really like having somebody to reflect this stuff back to me, because sometimes we can't see it from the outside. We don't notice when we're turning into a butterfly, because from the inside it feels the same. And that's where celebration and all of that stuff is really, really important.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think really you said it the best just then. So I'm going to sum everything up right now and just remember to be flexible, to be open. And when you approach everything with a light heart and joy and fun and a little bit of laughter and a whole lot of celebration, change is easier. It's like everything. It might be simple, but it's not always easy. So I am Natasha Lockey. I am a life performance mountain bike coach. I am here to help you move into your dreams, and I run retreats in Baja, Mexico. I'm building some retreats here in BC, Canada, and Ginny and I have our Riding in the Weeds Substack. Please join us over there. Subscribe. We'll be creating some really neat content that will be going in there in the very near future. You can find me at Betty Go Hard on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook, Natasha Lockey, and Riding in the Weeds is our podcast. So what about you, Ginny?
Yeah, I'm Ginny Branden. I'm an animal communicator and energy healer for animals and their people too. And if you are struggling with your pet relationship, you've got emotional challenges or behavioral challenges, that is a great time to have a session together. I intuitively work with your pet to learn about their perspective on life and find out what's going on in their world. And then we come back together and figure out a plan to help support both of you. So you can find me on the web at soulpetconnections.com and on Substack, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook under the same handles. So thank you so much for coming along for the ride with us today. We appreciate it. And if you would like to leave us comments, likes, or shares, we would really love that as well. So hang in there. Change is inevitable, but you can navigate it a little more smoothly if you pay a little more attention and don't get too stuck in the weeds.
Awesome. Thank you guys for joining us for this episode, and we will see you in the next one. Have a great day.